Okay, we back. We back to Keto Tay Business Consulting Group. We on this podcast. We got a full plate today. But first, I'm gonna let Elder Grady. You can get your book out of the way. We want to talk about it real quick.
Yes, thank you.
Short. We gonna hit this thing hard, heavy, and hard.
Yes, I wrote a book again. For those of you who haven't heard this particular podcast yet, called Solomon's Wisdom for Women. In it, there's one chapter, chapter 31, which I refer to as
Proverbs for men.
Proverbs 31 for men. Amen. So you may find it interesting to read. And then there's my other book called All the Bees of the Bible, which again, it's some many bits and pieces of wisdom, for everyday living. Maybe you find, purchase both of them, and hopefully you will, get some understanding from them.
And then we can come back and
Thank you.
We can, even for his books, you can send us a question and we'll try to answer them if you find it kind of what you don't like or do you like about it. You can put in some comments on the podcast, because this will be telecast on YouTube. So you can probably say some comments and we'll come back and we'll let Elder Grady kind of address it.
Amen. Thank you.
Whether it's positive or negative, you just put them on there. Okay, now we got I told you we got a full house. We still on love. The one we were gonna tackle was they feel safe and comfortable together. They can we gonna do
We're
that.
talking about let me slow you down. We're talking about are we talking about relationships?
Relationships of
yes.
men and women and partnerships and so on and so forth. But we got some other questions that was off. It may not talk about love, but I wanted to do this one because this woman that sent it in, she's a real estate person, and she's a general contractor. So she right now she's out there in the market, and she asked a question about whether what is the state of probably the real estate market when it comes to this administration. So I'm gonna hit that real quick, and then I'm gonna turn it over to my friend, and he gonna give his opinion about it. But I do got an answer for you right now. I said yes, people are actively buying and selling real estate under the Trump administration in 2025, though the market is trying to navigate through all these tariffs and so on and so forth. But they say it's an active market, and you can go to New York Post, you can go to other areas, the NASDAQ and all these other to tell you that we're doing good. In summary, the real estate market under Trump administration is active, but influenced by mixed supportive and challenging factors. Buying and sellers, the buyer and seller are advised to stay informed about economic policy and market trends when you're out there trying to buy a real estate. We can get deep into that. Maybe next time, if you want me to really get deep, I got a whole page and I can send you a copy of what I dug up about the market. The market is roaring under the Trump administration, still doing the same thing. So you can go ahead and have a take. You got a take on that real quick?
I got a take. I mean, under the Trump administration, people are also losing their jobs. So yeah, the market may start, roaring or exploding or whatever. But, we take all that into consideration, but also know that even whether it's Trump or Biden, not Biden, but Obama or former President Biden or Clinton or any other president, the market is what it is. And it all depends on, I think the time of year and the people. And of course, the interest rate, which we know right now is kind of high. But that's all I say about that.
Okay, now we're going to get into the second question. Second question is really a second. I'm going to put second and third question together because one's talking about an enmeshed families, and one is dealing with, say, what does love look like in a mentorship, coaching, partnership when love is not controlled? I'm going to say he says shackled. I'm going to say control because shackle and control mean the same thing, but a bridge. Yeah, you shackled.
Exactly.
You control. And we'll get into that. He said, how does it look? How does it look? It looks like this. It's blurred bound. We're talking about families.
Y'all think we're talking about
enmeshed families. Okay. Enmeshed families are characterized by an overly close and poorly defined boundaries between members of the family, often leading to emotional over-involvement, dependencies, and a lack of individual autonomy. Here's what what that typically looks like and what to expect. first we're gonna deal with how it looks like, and then secondly, I'm gonna let you give you a comment on what it looked like, and then the second question is what to expect in these enmeshed families. First, how does it look like? Blurred boundaries, family members that are deeply involved in each other's lives, lack of individuality. Members may struggle to form their own identity separate from the family. Emotional over-involvement. One person problems become the family problems. And then you got a triangulation, which is conflict between two members to pull, and they pull a third member of the family to take sides and mediate often against some children that's in the family. And fifth is control disguised as love. Expectations to conform are framed as cared or loyalty. Autonomy is discouraged under the guise of keeping the family close and safe. Oh, that's a whole mouthful, but we're going to come back. We're going to go back and forth with that for about 10 minutes, but I'm going to let you start off.
Well,
enmeshed families,
enmeshed
control,
family,
deep love. We're talking about love now. Come on.
Well, we can talk about love, but all enmeshed family necessarily had nothing to do with love. A lot of it had to do with just simply someone trying to control a situation, involve themselves in a situation where they have no business being in, and anything negative at times. Now, the enmeshed family, again, we already spoke about a little bit. It basically, I like to say that it's the immediate family, mama, dad, and their siblings, and their children, and their siblings. And whenever, let's say, in-laws get involved, then that's when you get an enmeshed family. The word is E-N-M-E-S-H-E-D, enmeshed. I mean, everybody gets involved. Sometimes when your in-laws get involved, then they can mess things up. And so I always say to, and I'm saying it now to some people, keep your family outside of your business. I mean, it's okay to let them in. If you ask them for some advice, that's one thing. But when they start getting in and giving you advice that you don't need, then you got a problem. So
should it be one family? Both families. Should it be one family, one big happy family?
I mean, if you got 20 family members who have 2 or 3 different family members, then that's fairly an enmeshed family. But when all of them are interfering in each other's lives, then again, that's problems. I mean, as long as everybody stay within their boundaries, so to speak, or you got your house, everybody has their own house, and what goes on in that house is y'all business. But you don't allow other people come in and dictate to you what you do in your house.
What if you're closer to one member of the family? One, like I said, one.
Well, you can be close.
You closer. You get married.
Okay.
And you got a big family, and you got another big family over here. And so you're trying to mesh these families together. Then you have babies. The grands come along, and then there's conflict.
Right.
Okay.
What causes the conflict?
I think what the person who wrote this question, they were trying to say is that, in-laws are interfering with their the autonomy of the nucleus of that immediate family.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, again.
And that's always been the case in families.
Right. And so it's always up to the people to deal with it. Like I always say, I tell people, you don't know if people may be interfering in your family for personal reasons or have ulterior motives. Right. So you got to be careful. I mean, your mom, dad may get in there and try to, interfere in how you raise your kids. Look, and then again, people put like, look, these are my children.
Exactly.
Mom and dad, you raised me, and you didn't let people come in and tell you how to raise us. So why are you trying to interfere with me raising my kids? If this is what I want for them, then that's my choice. Just like what you chose for us. That was your choice for us. Okay? But then when you start trying to interfere and stir up the pot, then, then I would say to them, if people are doing that, back off.
Well, what if one is closer to
it don't matter
the mother, or one is closer to the father?
It don't make no difference. Those are your children.
Yeah.
Now, if you're giving control, as we talking about, over to that parent, then might as well give the kid to them too. Okay, if you're taking control like that, but if you're not, unless that happens,
well, what does love have to do with it?
Love ain't got nothing.
Love is unified. Love unify families, right?
I mean, a parent again will love their child, no matter their age or what have you.
Right.
And so, but then that doesn't still mean that parent can interfere in that child's parenting of their children, unless they ask. If they don't ask parents, then stand back.
It's funny that you say that because I'm go back. I told you I always go back to the Bible. This is a guy named Jacob. Remember this guy named Jacob in the Bible?
Esau and Jacob.
Esau and Jacob. Yeah. But then he had a family. He had a family. You remember that? Big wrestle with God. He had a family.
Right. He had a family.
And folks tried to.
But that was after he left his parents.
Right. He had a family after, but before he left his parents, there were. The mother really was kind of strong.
That was her son, and she within her family, she's doing some stuff within her family. Okay.
But then he had a son called Joseph, and you remember when he was half blind then, and he said, "These are my children."
Oh!
You remember Joseph? You remember when Joseph? You remember he went to bless Joseph's children?
Abraham?
No.
Who was
this
that?
was Joseph. This is Jacob.
Jacob. Yeah, okay. Jacob had the son.
Jacob said, "These are mine." And he crossed this, and the Joseph said, "No, Daddy, this is the oldest."
Right.
Blessing the children. He said, "No, I know what I'm doing."
Right.
And he did a blessing over the children, and that brings me to the point. Usually, the grandfather is really he considered in God's eyes he's the father of the family and he's the father of the children.
Right.
So and for some reason we got those lines mixed up in terms of immediate.
What are you going to see? You're speaking.
Okay,
you're talking
go
about.
ahead.
Now again,
I'm trying to.
That's why you are.
And I mean, bring it back to how God defines families. That he integrates these children into his family.
Well, we don't know.
But that's where we're having problems with this enmeshed families.
I don't think we have it. Again, in the enmeshed family is almost, I can go back, almost like again, if it's not your immediate family, anybody else trying to get in there, maybe they're trying to throw some, you made your soup. You like how you like your soup the way you like it. And you put in your vegetables, tomatoes, corn, carrots maybe. But then somebody want to come along and throw some onions in there. You're like, wait a minute, I don't like onions in my soup. So keep your onions out.
Right.
So that's what I think. When you start throwing stuff in the soup that other people don't want in their soup, then that's when you get into an enmeshed situation where people don't like that. So as far as this, I would encourage anybody. I always encourage. Your mama throwing this in here that I would encourage everybody to read your Bible, and then you'll notice some of the stuff we're talking about with Jacob and his son Joseph, and how he blessed his sons in that relationship. But as far as what God ordained, the family, God created the family. The first married couple was Adam and Eve.
Exactly.
And then so from there, right, and then from there, we mess up everything.
Right.
So I say it like that.
Right.
We the ones mess it up.
We mess up.
Because we got to throw our cards.
We don't like in-laws, and we don't like
whatever
so. And then that's
or the in-laws don't like the in-laws.
And the problem, like you said, emotional
like that.
problem. One person problem becomes family problems, high emotional reactivity, anxiety, distress. Now we're gonna go to the question.
I don't know. Are we finished with this?
Yeah, we gonna come back. We're gonna come back to it.
Well, we can incorporate everything.
We're gonna incorporate.
But what are you talking?
She said one was how it looked. So we already explained how that looked.
But it don't look good. So everybody's interfering in everybody's business.
Because they lack of individuality, emotional over-involvement, triangulation, and control disguises love. We're going to come back to that. Then the second part of that person's question was what to expect. Okay? There's a psychological, because we started to get in there, that's why I wanted to cut it off.
Okay.
Psychological and behavioral things. And then we're going to do this a couple of weeks because we need to hit this because now we're going to get into role playing and how this really, because this is about 11 pages, but we only going to get today, we only going to go through 2. We're trying to get the overarching, what it is, how does it look like, what to expect. And then it said, can you give me an example?
What can anybody expect in an enmeshed family?
Right. Well, you said, what can people expect in an enmeshed family? Yeah. See, that's a term that here we go, human beings as family members, we just said somebody define what an enmeshed family because we keep interfering. The nucleus family the overall, you got a family, and then a family act comes when they, a person married, then another family involves, but that patriarchal family, like you see it in most countries, they still rule the nuclear family. Back in the day, even it's still happening today, that the fathers will give their daughters away.
Right, but even
then he's still the patriarch of that family.
But right, of that family. But then on the other side, which has a patriarch too.
Exactly.
So he's in charge of that family.
Yeah.
So that's why you got in the middle, and that's where again you have the people who are in the middle of all this. That's the immediate.
Just
family.
the immediate family.
That's when that becomes immediate for them, and that's their family. Their families can be enmeshed in that they involved. The father involved with what the mother's doing, the mother involved with the father doing, and then they have children, and then they both get involved with what the children's doing.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
Both should be looking out for the welfare
of that immediate
family, right?
Instead of controlling that immediate family.
Well, they are in control of it. They are in control of what's going on there. But as their children grow, immediate family. I mean, yeah.
But then the external.
But you're talking about the patriarch.
Yeah, the patriarch is still trying to control that.
Well, then the patriarch hopefully, the patriarch should step back.
He should, but
right, because again,
it's not happening.
Well, if it's not happening, then you got a problem.
Matriarch.
That's when whether it's a matriarch or a patriarch.
They still treat their children as if they're
directing their lives.
Yeah.
So and that's
if you don't, they use leverage.
Well, like I'm gonna withhold this from you, or I'm gonna do that.
I don't like. Well, you don't have to be in my hand. Blah blah blah. Wait, blah blah.
Yeah, but then
that's what this. I think that's what this person is really getting at, because they too much influence, and they gotta. They have a weak son or weak daughter, and so they still pulling their strings.
But then again, that's something. Again, then the weak person who's given in to the dominant patriarch or matriarch needs to themselves, but they need to get a hold of themselves and talk, because, like I said, it's causing a tornado, as you put it. It's causing problems in the nuclear family. Yeah, it's causing problems in that circle. But if they don't understand that
causes a breakup of that family.
Well, it could happen.
Yeah,
but they won't break off their relationship with their patriarch or matriarch, because they seem to be so
they tied to them. They can be emotionally tied to them, and then they call them weak. They call a man, in the certain cases I'm hearing, they say call the man weak or call the woman weak because they can't tell their parents.
What did God say?
Yeah, God said leave you.
God said they shall be one. And they should
leave their mother and father and become one.
Exactly. So you got to lead them.
Right.
You can't take them with you.
But we know based on the Bible too, that family, that extended family or that new family, that didn't happen. That still don't happen.
We're talking about today's stuff.
That's right.
I mean, well, no, I put another.
I'm talking about today.
Well, I put another way.
Back then, but it's still a whole. If you take a Muslim family, you take anybody, the patriarch still is ruling.
I'll put it another way. We can say that. You can say that about any family in any generation prior to now.
Yes.
If that's how they operate.
So let's get into how it looks like.
How it looks.
How it look. The person wanted to know, how does that look like? Because we still on the top. Oh, how it looks like now. What to expect?
Well, I don't know about this. Well, let's say how it looks. I don't know. I mean,
we already discussed how it looked like.
What did we say? How did it?
Well, it looked like blurred boundaries, lack of individuality, emotional over-involvement, triangulation, and control.
Can I say this?
Love.
Right? Can I say this?
Okay, so we got to get on the second page.
Let's.
Because you'll keep going.
I thought you said that we're going to be on it for a while.
Well,
what's the rush?
Well, it is because we've got to get the headers in place.
The headers.
We talking about headers. How it look like.
All right, let me say
what to expect.
Let me go back to how it looked like.
No, we already discussed that. See, we gonna.
It's your podcast. We move on.
Yeah, we'll move on because we'll stay on that. We only got about 10 minutes.
We have to stay on it. Why are we rushing when you say we got time?
We're gonna come back to it.
Well, I ain't gonna have to kill it now. We can just I just want to make it. Let me say what I gotta say. Thank you. We don't really know how it looks like because that's within that conflict. We could be on the outside looking in and don't know what we see. Okay, only the people
Well,
involved.
what you
Well, I'm saying only people involved really know
That's
how
what
it
it
looks,
how it
and
look.
they're the ones that got to deal with how it looks.
Right.
Because they can come out that door and be smiley faces, everything hunky dory.
Smiling faces.
You know
tell
what they
lies.
say, kumbaya. You know, everything's kumbaya.
Yeah.
So therefore, we don't really know how it looks.
Right.
Only they know how it
Well,
looks.
we know how it looks based on,
Like I said,
blurred
But
boundaries.
how would we know that?
That's
How would
the
we know
question was, how does it look
To whom?
to whoever wrote the question,
Wait,
or
wait,
just
wait,
overarching?
Wait a minute. They're asking the question.
Right. So
They're asking
the
how
answer
does-
is here.
The answer is there, but they're still asking, how does it look? To whom is that question actually saying? I ask you this question. How does my family look to you?
We're gonna get
How
into
does my
that.
family look to you?
Can we move on? And this, first of all, you gotta set boundaries.
All right, set your
Just
boundaries.
like we do for
All right,
love.
we're gonna move on. I'm gonna leave
Okay. Now she said, the person asked said, how does it look?
What do you mean? Well, yeah, next time we talk to that person.
Blurred boundaries.
Let's ask that person to define what they said.
They did. We defined it now.
To whom does they asking this question?
Okay, Elder. Let's move on. We got to. Next, what
Okay,
to
what's the
expect?
next question?
First of all, they said how to look. We already told how
All
to
right,
look.
I thought let's move on.
We're gonna move on.
They didn't answer that question.
Now we're gonna look at what to expect. When we're dealing with the psychological and we're dealing with behavioral. Okay,
Right.
so what to expect? This is what to expect. Children may develop anxiety, guilt, or people-pleasing tendencies. Adults members may have trouble forming healthy relationships outside of that patriarchal. You came out of a patriarchal family, so that person might. Okay, we're gonna get into role playing too. Probably next week we'll get into role playing.
I don't know about all that.
Well, yeah, we gonna because I got it here. We're gonna we're gonna talk about situations, and we're gonna specific situations, and then we're gonna talk about the kind of conversations normally these kind of families have.
You say you and I right now are having an enmeshed conversation.
Yeah. Emotional manipulation or guilt trips are common tools. You said what to expect when you have an enmeshed family. Emotional manipulation or guilt trips are common tools of control. Leaving or distancing from the family may provoke strong backlash or emotional pressure. We're going to get into what that means. We just getting headers. I know no elder don't understand the headers that we're getting into.
So you call them topics.
I call them topics.
These are topics we're going to talk about.
These are some of the things that happens and what to expect when you have an enmeshed family. First of all, we had to define what it looked like.
So
that's the question. Wait, hold on. I'm not finished. One more. Then you can ask you. Therapy, therapy comes in because a lot of them have to go to therapy. Say, you got to go. I heard a woman tell me one day, her husband, if her husband don't go to therapy, he said, I ain't going to therapy. And then they broke up. Okay. Therapy often reveals deep-seated loyal conflicts and identity struggles. Most men do not like to go to therapy. I'm one of them because I don't. Therapy is there just talking. That's what we're doing now. We're having therapy right now. Now, she asked the person asked the question. Enmeshed families. Okay, we defined it. We said what it looked like, and now what to expect. Now, we're gonna move on, and we're gonna continue this topic because I'm telling you, all of us involved in love, because that's what he's talking about, pressure, disguised as love. You don't love me if you don't. Yeah, they never live. Yeah, that kind of thing. They pressure you, and you have seen this. We've seen this constantly. So I know what this person is saying. And that's how we break up families. One family over here, another family is over there. And then one lean toward one family, and then the kids grow up unhealthy because they don't see the other side of the family, the other families that's involved in this group, this nucleus.
Right.
And then as years go by, the children grow up and they finally meet their cousins, their first cousins and their second cousins and they, that kind of thing. And then they say, wow, we wasted a lot of time because the two patriotic families, the Enmeshed family, was having issues. Okay. And I hear it all the time. That's why I said this was a perfect question. Because that's what we're discussing when we talk about love. Because they said in love, they feel safe and comfortable together. Okay, this is the immediate family now. They're having issues because the Enmeshed family is still trying to lean over and say, and they giving information about people to somebody, and that other family is giving probably wrong advice to that son or daughter. And that's where the problems come in.
Oh, amen.
So that's a good stopping point right there. Because go ahead. I'm gonna let you take the last 5 minutes because
I don't want 5 minutes.
You give 2 minutes because we gotta understand this because that's why you don't feel safe. I leave it alone. That's why feel safe or comfortable together. They can't be true to themselves because that Enmeshed family is still got your ear.
Well, you said
I leave it alone.
Yeah, you said.
I know I said a lot.
Yeah, you said a lot. And so again, we're gonna
hit this thing, and we're gonna because we can't go past these things that we said, and from a human and from a God perspective, until we understand enmeshed families that's causing so much turmoil.
Well, maybe
in the totality of the nuclear family.
Right. Since you mentioned God, if God isn't involved in the family, you're going to have these enmeshed, sometimes unhealthy families. Again, that's godly. Well, again, and that's God. Right. And so therefore you have what's that?
They're not saved.
Well, yeah, but you have I'm trying to think of that word that says families aren't towing the rope together or pulling the rope together. So I'm just saying that if God isn't involved, then you're going to have a mess. You're not going to have cooperation. You're not going to have order. Okay. So if God's not involved, then you got an enmeshed family. If God's not involved, then you're going to have a hodgepodge of anything. And like you said, yeah, you're going to have children that are unruly, that don't respect their parents, because in some cases, because the grandparents or the patriarch, whatever you want to call it, doesn't respect their children, and it shows up. And that's not to say that that's every family. Even if they don't have God in their lives, they can still have order, some control, and kids will grow up balanced.
And I'm gonna say this one thing. You remember God said, told Solomon, do not mix with those. Now I'm talking about that. Now we're gonna get Solomon was told, he loved Solomon. He said, "Well, you mix with those other groups, those people, that's going to turn your head from me."
What about
we try to do this without, like you said, without God. We trying to families. We trying to do that's what this question arrived from a person. The person really is not. We say we
don't know that. Well, yeah,
I do.
Yeah, okay.
So the question is coming from, and then that's where the struggle. And even those who have God, both families have God. There's a struggle. There's a struggle. If
the families have God and they're struggling, then have
this thing of one that don't have God.
Which one you say? Are you saying the one with or without?
Well, I'm saying the question came from a person who I'm not going to get into it. It's coming from that, you may not have God on one side.
Either they do or they don't.
They don't. Okay. Well, they don't. Probably don't. They probably think they do, but they based on what I was getting at.
I like to say they're not walking with the Lord.
They're not walking with the Lord.
Right. They're walking outside of God's
and even most people
God's
in
will.
God, they're not walking the way God would walk.
And they struggle.
And they struggle too.
Right, with this enmeshed stuff.
So that's why I love this, because it's hitting both sides anyway. We still got the world involved.
We done gone over our time.
I know. That's all right.
1 minute.
Okay. So we're gonna argue about this, or we're gonna discuss this. I don't like arguing, discuss it, and we're gonna discuss this offline until we get it. We're gonna get on one accord.
We can get discussed offline,
and then we're gonna bring it back here.
Right, but don't mean we're gonna have the right answer because I don't remember.
You do.
I'm not at this point. My computer don't hold information like that.
Yeah, well, because it's called God's computer.
Well,
So the only way you're gonna solve this problem, this world thing,
you'll never solve it. We can't.
No, you're gonna solve it. It's gonna be solved.
No, we can say okay. The solution is
the solution is,
but that don't mean
the solution.
Right, but don't mean. But even if they did, don't mean that the other
there
person,
is a solution.
Ain't but one solution.
Exactly.
Which is
okay.
So, but don't mean other person's going to say, well, okay,
God
is
the
the
other
answer.
person is always going to lean back on flesh.
Yeah, even then, I mean, you take Peter and Paul, two of the greatest disciples,
they started coming
people of God,
afterward.
right? But they had bumped heads.
Yeah, but they came together.
And they really, because at some point they also separated. They said, well, look, Peter, what did Paul say? I'm going over here. Peter, and you can go over there.
Well, Peter had to go to the Jews.
And he said, Paul said, I'm going to the Gentiles.
But that God separated them to go to both.
Well, the point is, they separated.
At the end, Peter was saying, Brother Paul, and Paul was saying, Brother Peter.
Well, yeah, but
they wasn't as separate when at the end of the day, they was not as separate.
I think they could have known with God. When you're talking about God, God is always the glue. God is always the glue holding things together.
That's right.
But even then, there's two sides to every piece of paper. Okay? And you get
side and then
there's Darnell's side.
we'll leave it at there. That we'll end it.
Amen.
This was good. We're gonna do this again next week. We're gonna do this again and again then, because I'm glad to get this question. And then we're gonna add more questions into this question. So, please subscribe and send it to a friend. We got it. This question should go international. I'm telling you, that's why Ukraine, same family of Russia, is fighting. Family members. Okay. God bless you. See you next week.